that was in, when I was elected fire chief. There was Clyde Simmons was the assistant, Harry Stratt, James Moffett, Ross Davis, Bob Davis, William Ryan, Bruce Marcus, Walter Gutzman, Junior Young, Eugene Marcus, Earl Jeffers. They were all firemen that served the town of Craftsbury. And while I was chief, we renovated the creamery, to be the HP Hood plant, to keep our trucks in there so we could heat them, to have water year round. They were very active, and all of the firemen did a lot of work for the town of Craftsbury. And we had a great crew. We all got along very good, and a lot of fun, a lot of good memories. You remember it all, don't you?
Did any of you ever either hear of or were involved in any injuries in fighting fires?
No.
Were there any casualties?
During the years I was fire chief, Sonny Stratt usually was watching what every all the firemen did. I used to be a lot of most of the time with the fire truck. We used to have a batten pump, front-mounted pump, and I used to try to be sure we had water. But Sonny, I remember we used to do a lot of it.
Sonny was nutty. I don't remember it since Ed's time. We haven't had any what I would call serious injuries. We've had a couple of minor things, sprains, back sprains, leg sprains, and things like that. But I can remember, I was thankful one night, Harry Sweat was behind me over here in the Dustin house when they had a room that flashed over, and we only had one air tank at that time. And we just got up to the door and was just going to open it with a line, and the machine stopped working. And I was kind of panicking and fighting that. Sonny reached, I felt this big hand grab me by the waist and start pulling me back down the stairs. And I was glad of that. The other assistant chief one time on the Patterson house fire over here on the backside of the common, I went through the floor and went into the basement that was full of flame. And I can remember Sonny Sweat reaching down through that floor, and all I could see was his fingers. We locked fingers, and he pulled me up out of the basement.
Wow.
I came up like there was a ladder right there. I think it was 2 days later before I realized I even lost my glasses when I fell through the floor.
Didn't you happen to fall on a door that had been on a sawhorse? Because you didn't go all the way to the floor, did you?
Not the first time, but I ended up on the floor.
But I heard that.
Paula, you remember these firefighters?
Oh, yes, oh, yes.
You probably too.
I'm sorry.
You remember a lot of these firefighters?
Oh, yes.
The old.
Oh, right, well, back to the Dustin house, the one on the corner,
Yeah.
right? Well, my mother started that one.
You better stop recording that.
It was very cold, wasn't it? Very, very cold. And the house really didn't have that much insulation. And the outlets, you could see frost sometimes on the outlets. She plugged in her electric blanket and whoosh.
I remember it was an electric
And
cord under the rug. Yeah.
Sonny Simmons was there almost like that, you know.
I remember that.
When was that?
Is there any more fire your family started?
We have it on tape now.
So I guess Roberta and her family kept it busy.
I guess.
if you look back at the equipment, June was mentioning the town bought their first new motorized piece of fire equipment in 1935. They put it in service in 36, 37. It was in, they paid for it in the 37 town report, so it was in 36.
Not the international.
That international, yeah. They had local, they put a handmade body on it. That had a 400 gallon a minute front end pump on it. Came from a fire pump company in Boston.
Yeah, that was about,
Barton Pump, Barton American. Orleans and Hardwick both bought one at the same time, just like it, on the same chassis, except their pump was a little bit bigger than ours. They had a guy, some of you will remember hearing about the Bliss family that lived in the yellow house right beside where the town hall is today. He was a tinsmith and he made the tank for that fire truck body.
Huh.
And it's in that sheet that you've got there, $36 or something, I don't think. We just bought a new tank truck and it cost a lot more than $36 for the tank, but, and then the next new vehicle they bought was in 1961.
one or two.
And that was just the chassis. They took the front end pump off the 1935 International and mounted it on that truck. And then they had one of the firefighters that Ed was talking about, Marcel Kader, was kind of the lead firefighter, and they built a wooden body for it, put a new 275 gallon tank on the back of it. In fact, that wooden body's still down there outside the firehouse, so sitting on a couple of the granite rocks there. And they did all that by hand. And Don, I don't know, you got those pictures or should?
Well, I just came back to you, but I got them online now.
Oh, they're online.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, go check that out.
Check your Facebook.
I'll pass these around, but I really would appreciate getting them all back. But this is,
The 1961.
this is the 61 truck. This was the open house, and you can see this, they were housed underneath the present Grange Hall. And that's, had a dirt floor, which it still does. And there's some of your firefighters that you were talking about right there, Ed.
We still have that fire pump over at the fire station.
And that, yeah, Marcel was asking me about that tonight. We did, in about 1970, we had to take it down for some repairs to Boston, and they had a bigger one right there that had been completely rebuilt that would fit right on, and so Sonny was with us because he was on the select board at that time, I remember, and he says, you know, we're foolish if we don't get that other pump. So I remember we took a chance and we grabbed it, had them put it on, and probably paid for it with those funds on the fiddlers or something along.
When the picture comes to you, that's the whole Army truck. Head for forest fires. That's a good picture of it.
Oh, yeah.
That was donated by Hollis Lake.
Hollis did the donated, right? Vita Markers took those pictures. Eugene brought them over about a month ago.
Any idea what happened to the command truck after the fire department?
No, I don't know. You know, I don't know. I know the 61 Ford was put up for bid by the town, and it went to a farmer up in Charleston or Island Pond area, somewhere up there. I think he bought it for a farm truck, and
Still running.
it is. Yeah.
Craftsbury.
When was the current firehouse built?
Well, you heard Ed said originally the H.B. Hood company had a creamery there in town, and when they stopped processing milk there, they gave it basically to the town for one of those deals, you know, like for $1 or whatever, and like Ed said, town, we remodeled it, used 1/2 for town equipment, keep the grader in, there were 1 town truck at that time, and so on in it, and the other half we had the fire trucks in it. And then that building burned on purpose. By
Is that for Burton?
I hope we never have a fire.
No, it wasn't Roberta, but it was, we knew we'd been having a problem for quite some time. Will, I think, remember this, that people were breaking in there and they were siphoning gas out of the fire trucks. And they kept the school bus in the town half where the grader was and so on at the time. And so that's what was happening actually. They were siphoning gas out of one of the school bus and dropped a match or whatever they were doing. Probably had to light up a cigarette to see what they were doing or something. But they, anyway, started a fire, and actually we lost the building. We didn't lose it. We managed to get the fire trucks out, but we lost the building. We got the grader out. I think they did lose that school bus, if I remember right. And so after that, they built the current building. That was, when did Everett put that up in, what year, 70?
81.
81? I was gonna say it was even late. They built that current wooden building, the long one,
The building that burned, the fire department, was that the creamery?
creamery. That was the original hood creamery, yeah. Yeah.
Where was the Grange Hall?
The Grange Hall is still in existence. It's right at the intersection of the Creek Road and South Craftsbury Road, in Craftsbury Village,
Opposite the church.
right opposite the Catholic Church.
For sale.
It's been sold.
At the Chase property.
Yeah.
The trucks used to be stored down underneath, so you went between the Sea Village store and the building.
That's the side toward the Sea Village store.
Now, another thing I found interesting, if you go to the, I want to say it's like the 4th page in, the 3rd or 4th page in, it says the 1949 report. I think it was that one.
49, so it's that in the back.
Yeah, it's way in the back, it's from the rear. Actually, move 2 pages further inward, it says the 1948 report. This is the first time that an actual fireman's report was given to the town that I could find. And this one was done by Louis Marcus. It lists the names of the firefighters there, and then at the very end, it said was formed in March 1947. Now, we don't have any records or bylaws that say it was created at that time, but there's certainly references to firefighting before. But if you look down, like next to the last paragraph, it said there are several farms with a water supply that could be converted into good fire protection with a little work. Anyone wishing help on this work can get in touch with any member of the fire department, and the work can be done on practice nights during the summer. Here it is 60, 70 years later, we're doing the same thing today. In Walt's report, quite often, we announce that we're doing dry hydrant program. At this point, I think we've got 25 dry hydrants in town, scattered all the way around. But here, they were forethinking of creating these dams, creating a pool of water in any way possible so that when they arrive, they would have a source. And if you look at the next year, the next report, it's saying the same thing. You know, more dams have been created for this protection. But it's ironic how we're still doing the same thing today that we were then. In the 49 report, 2 pages back, the next to the last paragraph in the main body, this is quite interesting. I think Marcus was way ahead of his time. That paragraph says, "I would like the opinion of the townspeople on an inspection of all buildings in the town of Craftsbury for the purpose of eliminating faulty fire conditions and at the same time making a survey of private-owned fire equipment. I would recommend duplicate blanks to be filled out by the inspector, checking the recommended corrections, one to be given to the property owner and the other to the fire department." So they were already at that point inspecting buildings. The next year, it refers to getting another town vote to do that again. But it was a good, we're doing it today. We do scene size ups. We come out and we determine how big a building is and what sort of a fire load it'll take. And then we determine how much water we need to flow to save that building. So when we're putting in dry hydrants, if we know we have, let's say, Sterling College over here, it's a heavy fire load, we know that one hydrant cannot supply enough water for those buildings or any one building. That's why we have a hydrant down at Zabers. We have a hydrant here on this end of the common. We have the town water supply that we can tap into. And then we hope for mutual aid to start shuttling from Hosmer or something else. But there you certainly have it that they were starting to do some of these original size-ups of buildings so that they could be prepared, which we're still doing today. Any new buildings that go in, we're having to do it. So I thought it was very interesting.
What year was that?
In 47 and 48. Yep. And they were still doing dances at that time, you know, raising money. Dances.
We still are just, it's kind of ironic because Randy came to my house this morning to drop these copies off, and just before he got there, you all know we have a business in town called the Craftsbury Outdoor Center, who's going through some rather rapid expansion and so on, and I had just got done meeting with them for about an hour, going over plans for their next renovation project up there, because part of Vermont's Act 250 permit, they have to be able to, fire department has to be able to certify that they can provide adequate fire protection for any buildings that they're going to build and so on. And so we'll be working, we worked with them on their new ski lodge that they're just getting ready to open. Now we'll be working with them on their new project to open up and make some cabins, I guess.
You don't charge for that? They don't pay you for that?
I kidded him today, believe it or not, when he called, because it's kind of ironic that that can it gets pretty time consuming.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably spent 15, 20 hours in the last year just on Craftsbury Center. You know, not fighting fire, but just doing paperwork.
Right.
And so every new project they get, it's going to take probably about that much. So I kidded today, and he says, "How am I going to pay?" I said, "Well, you can put me on the payroll, maybe." And he thought that was going to be a little excessive. But
You know, sometimes you see on the very oldest buildings, you see that little decal, you know, that's in the windows, like on a second or third story, where the fireman is holding a child. Were those rooms actually identified by the fire department as the bedrooms of
as the
children?
bedrooms where children were in. Yep. And in some states, they're illegal now because, of course, people are so mobile, and they change their homes, the interiors, so frequently. So now that they recommend that you don't, they have stickers that you can put on the lower corner of the door instead of in the windows. Because if you're crawling, firemen are going to be on their hands and knees anyway when they go down a hallway. So if they're down close to the floor, they can see these reflective stickers on the bottom, and that will tell them. Some people have pets that they think as much of as as other people think of children, and so they have them for pets too, because every town meeting, I always get requests, do you have any pet finders or something that I can put? 'Cause if I have a fire, you get my pets out, and don't worry about the house, just get my pets out.
I know there's one that I've seen, there's a house on Creek Road that still has
Has
the
some of those.
sticker in the window.
See, unfortunately, people, when the kids grow up, move out, the stickers still stay there, they don't take them off, but, and, I had a call from a person this morning right after you left years ago. Ed, you might have been, were you on the department when they sold those glass carbon tetrachloride fire extinguishers to raise money? Harry's shaking his head. You remember those? Because this person said, we were cleaning out my parents' house and we found one of those and it says to be careful. I said, yes, it's a very dangerous substance. Don't. So they were going to try and get hold of some hazmat people to see how they could dispose of them. But there's some of those are still around. I know there'll be some in the attics of some of the real old buildings here in town.
What did they used to do, this, throw it on a fire?
No, it was actually spring loaded. It had a fuse, and so when the heat melted the fuse, spring would let go and a little hammer would break this glass and throw this carbon tetrachloride, which is a very potent carcinogen. They used to use it in dry cleaning a lot. And so that's another aspect. That fires have changed a lot when we go back to the Fred Camp and Louis Marcus era and so on. Most of the time they were worried about structure fires. If you look in the Old Town Report, structure fires, of course. Chimney fires were very, very big. And grass and occasional forest fires. Today, would anybody like to tell us what's our #1 call today?
Car accidents.
Huh?
Car accidents.
Car accidents for the fire department. You're right on. Yep, car accidents. Because most people don't realize today, both state and federal, car accidents are considered a hazardous material accident if there are any fluids leaking. That would be whether it's antifreeze, transmission fluid, motor oil, any of those things. It's considered a hazmat incident and has to be, you just can't do like we used to, sweep it up and throw it away or throw it over the bank or whatever. We've all done that. I'm going to introduce our people here.
Wait, what is the #1 fire? You said it.
Well, our EMS, we've taken a fire, we have an EMS, we have a first responder corps. We have currently 5-6 firefighters that are trained in EMS, and that's when you call 911 for a medical emergency. Those are the people that will go. If they need additional help, they can radio regular firemen to come and assist if they need help to get the person, let's say if you're over a bank or what have you. Those two are, then we have our structure, chimney and grass fires, but like I said, we have to go to hazmat incidents now. We do ice and water rescue, especially in the wintertime. We have special ice suits that allow us to go into our bodies of water here. Certainly know we all have a lot of skiing and across lakes and things. We do rope rescue. The last few years we've been getting a lot of carbon monoxide alarms. A lot of people are putting carbon monoxide alarms in the house, which you should have, especially if you have any kind of propane, gas, water, heat, gas stove, anything using propane. You should have a carbon monoxide alarm in there because that's a silent killer. You don't smell it. And then the automatic alarms. We were making fun. I was up here in this building, right here in the next room on Monday, I guess it was. The school called and said the fire alarm's going off. We don't think there's any actual fire, but they had 15 Chinese students out there with every gas burner on the stove and every oven going that there was, not a window open, and I'm telling you, you could have roasted a pig out in this room.
Oh, dear.
So you get those kinds of calls.
We also have the equipment for large animal rescue.
Yeah, we do have large animal rescue equipment. You've got a horse. Randy's gone out of the, well, somewhat out of the cow business. But I remember we were up at his place getting a heifer out of that was trapped in a confined space.
She was down 6 feet in the ground. I couldn't get her out.
But,
Well, we used it for Suzanne Griffith's llama too. You had just
Yep.
gotten the equipment,
Yep.
I remember, you said
Yep.
first time. And we used it with.
yeah, to get that llama out of the
Yeah.
pasture, yeah.
We've actually, with that equipment, we actually have become responsible for Lamoille County and Orleans County.
Oh, my goodness.
So we have a pretty big area. I don't know if you remember, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, there was a horse in Morrisville that went into the pool. At that time, we had the equipment, Morrisville didn't realize it. Since then, we've been in touch with their mutual aid system. They ended up coming up with a wrecker and putting straps underneath the horse. The woman was in the pool with the horse, and the wrecker reached over the fence and was able to lift it. But, I mean, we have the slings and the equipment that we need to do. What we do is we end up having to hobble the animal with probably a vet's assistance to sedate the animal, because we just don't want to have a horse flailing around. But then we have the straps and everything to pull them up. We have the blinders, we have all the equipment for that. It's something different.
Then we've had the calls where the calls come in that there's a piece of equipment on fire, and they forget to mention that it's on fire in the barn.
No.
That adds a little element of surprise.
Yep.
Get the animals out.
Got an electric motor burning, okay, you get there. Oh, the electric motor's on the hay elevator. Inside the barn full of hay.
Yeah, but the cows in the basement.
Yeah.
Car fire, cows don't grow.
So,
What has changed in fighting winter fires over the years?
well, having a heated garage is a big thing so that you can keep water in vehicles now. When we arrive on scene right now, we have the capabilities of 45, a little over 5,000 gallons of water we carry on our vehicles. So that's a pretty good, that's a good 10, 12 minutes of fighting a fire.
Because what did you have to do before? You had to fill up the tanker before you?
You couldn't carry, because if you couldn't heat the building, you couldn't keep water in it. Your pumps were frozen instantly. I mean, and that still happens in here. Hardwick's noted for their, they do urban renewal down there about every 10, 12 years, we call it. They have a block fire. And it's always on the coldest, most wintry night.